Hey everyone, and welcome to this stream. I'm glad to have you here. I'm really happy for everyone who have been joining us since the first stream of this series. Thank you for joining me on this journey of building a Laravel application from scratch. My name is Mohammed Saeed, and if you're new here, this series is all about building an application that's like Airbnb using Laravel. It has users can list listings like offices, home offices that people can rent to do remote work. So there are listings, and there are listings can be attached to tags, and people can make reservations on those listings. They can cancel reservations. They can search and filter through different listings and different reservations, like a typical CRUD application that is built on top of Laravel. So in the previous streams, we worked on having everything ready for this day, which is the day we are going to finalize the application. And today we are going to finish the making reservations endpoint. We have a few tests that we need to write, and we also need to do some little refactoring, as well as continue on the business logic with sending hosts and users emails whenever they make a new reservation with the details they need to go forward. And also we are going to work on the cancel reservations endpoint. We will allow people to cancel reservations that are in the future, and then we will do some little housekeeping and then call it a day. This will be the final phase of this will be the final stream on the first phase, or this current phase of this project. The future, what's in the future? In the future we will be working on deploying this application to production via Laravel Forge and via Laravel Faber and Envoyer. And that's it. That's all about this project. We will be done with it. The future holds very exciting things about other streams, building other functionalities and other projects. But for today, we are going to finish this project. So let me share my screen so we can get started. But first, I'm gonna take a quick look at the chat. Hello there, hi everyone, hi from Bangladesh, hi from Yemen. Hi everyone. Are you able to show the ERD diagram for this project? No, I don't actually. I didn't get the chance to draw one, so no, I don't have it. Hi from Iran, hi from France. Will you be building the front end of this project? I'm not sure actually. Like the main focus of this project was always building the back end to show the Laravel functionalities. Maybe sometime in the future we might build a front end for it using Tailwind and Vue.js. Maybe we will use Inertia, I'm not sure, but the main focus of this project has always been building the back end using Laravel. Hello from Sweden, hello from Uzbekistan. I'm glad to have you here, guys. I'm really happy for you joining me today. So let's get started. So this is the to-do list for today. Today we need to work on these items on the make reservations endpoint, and then we will move to working on the cancel reservations endpoint. And finally, we will do some little housekeeping just to make sure that things that we dropped from the previous streams are also covered before we launch this project to production. So we will start by first showing the user reservation controller, and inside the create method, which is used by users to create new reservations or make new reservations. It's a typical endpoint where we authorize the user and we validate the input, the filters that the user or the input that the user passed to the request, and then we do some other custom validation, like making sure that the user is not making a reservation on their own offices, making reservations, or making sure that the new reservation is not conflicting with any on the previous reservation, so on and so forth. You can find all the information about what's in this code in the previous stream. But now there's something that I missed from the previous stream, which is that I do not use the data that is validated from the validator. I'm not using it to create the validation itself. Like here you can see that the create method is reading directly from the from the request object. And the problem with that is I forgot to call the validate method, like we ended the previous stream, and I didn't call the validate method, and that resulted in the validation never running. And because we don't actually validate, or we don't assert, or we don't test the validation, we didn't catch that I forgot calling the validate method. And usually I don't use any input from the request except when passing the request input to the validator itself, and then I use the output of the validator to continue with writing the logic for the application. But for some reason I didn't do that in the previous stream, and that caused a lot of trouble. So we are going to fix that in this stream, and I called the validate method, and then I'm gonna read the data, the validated data that's provided by the user. And then I'm gonna, and instead of using the request helper to read all the input, we are going to switch to using the data incoming from the validator. So let's read all this and change it to read the data from the validator. Let me just make sure that I'm fixing everything. So here we need to use the data inside the closure, and I think we are good to go. Let's run the tests. PHP artisan test. And we can see that everything is passing. So if we remove, or if we forget to call the validate method and we run the tests, we will see failures because the data is, or we are reading the data from the variable that's assigned to the output of the validate method. And since we are not calling the validate method, this variable will hold an instance of the validator, not the data that is incoming from the request, the validated data. So we will start getting errors. So using the data, the validated data, or the output of the validate method, ensures that we always call the validate method, and if we don't call it for some reason, we forgot, we will get alerted because the tests will fail. So this is something that I missed from the last stream, and we have fixed it now. Now we need to cover another case that user shouldn't be able to make a reservation on a pending or a hidden office. So let's hit user reservation controller, and here, after we found the office, we validate that the user is not trying to make a reservation on an office that belongs to them. We will also make sure that the office, if the office is hidden, or the office, let's remember what was the field name. So let's go to the office migration, and we can see here that the approval status. So if the office is hidden, or the approval status equals office approval pending. So if the office is hidden or is pending, we will throw a validation exception and say you cannot make a reservation on a hidden office. Something like this. We can always work on making the validation messages more user-friendly whenever we want. So let's go to the user reservation controller test, and let's find the test. Cannot make a reservation, that's conflicting. Cannot make a reservation that belongs to user. Let's copy this test and cover this logic, the new logic, which is it cannot make a reservation on an office that is pending or hidden. So we will have an office, and this office will be pending. So approval status will be equal to office approval pending, and then let's remove this so the office won't belong to the same user making the request, and then we will make a reservation like normal, and we expect to see this validation message, you cannot make a reservation on a hidden office. So let's do that and run the tests. Let's only run the tests for the user reservation controller here. So PHP artisan test filter equals user reservation controller test, and all the tests are passing. So we now are sure that we cannot make a reservation on an office that has a pending status. Now let's cover the other case, and we will cover it in the same test. So here we will create another office. Let's create it here, office 2. And this office will have hidden equals true, true, hidden equals true. And same as we are doing assertion on the first request, we will make a second request. So response 2. Of course, we can split this test to 2 different tests instead of having it in one test, but I just think that it's just okay to include both cases in the same test. So response, we are making a reservation on office number 2, and we should also have this second response having the same output, which is that we cannot make a reservation on a hidden office. So let's run the tests. And we're good. So we have covered this case. Now let's move to this test. You can make a reservation starting next day, but cannot make one on same day. So let's go to the user reservation controller test, and it cannot make a reservation on less than 2 days. No, that's not the ones. We will just copy this. This is covering another case, which is you cannot make a reservation with a start date and end date at the same day. So we will need another test to assert that we cannot make a reservation. It cannot make a reservation tomorrow. So if the user is trying to make a reservation, a start date, you cannot make a reservation on same day. Obviously you can make a reservation starting tomorrow, but you cannot make a reservation on the same day. So at days 3, and we should get an exception. So let's go to the user reservation controller and see if this case is actually covered by the code. Let's run the test and see the response that we will get. So JSON, and we need to run this test. So let's go to the terminal and run this test. And we can see that it is not covered. But we actually have here a validation rule that says that the start date should be after today, but we are passing today. So let's read the data that's incoming, just to make sure that we are doing things correctly. So here the start date is at I think now to date string. Also this will be to date string. So yeah, 11 and 10. It should be after today. It should return a validation error. Yeah, so it's working now. The start date must be a date after today. Alright, so this now is okay. The start date here should return this error message. And if we run the test again, it's now passing. So yeah, users can make reservations starting tomorrow, but they cannot make a reservation starting today. So if they provide today as a start date, the validation will prevent that. So that's something that we just covered. All right, I'm gonna take a quick look at the chat. Can you implement an artisan command for adding the user or office? I'm not sure if there is something special about that, like you can create an artisan command that you provide an arguments and options to this command, and you use these options inside the command body to create an eloquent model instance. So I don't think it's something that that's tricky or anything. So Rust is saying you add too much logic. What do you mean by adding too much logic? Hello Muntasir, hi from Senegal. Hello from Kenya, hi Samuel. Glad to have you here. How would you handle caching API responses? This is the one thing that is always questionable. Honestly, I don't think for this kind of application, caching the API responses is something useful, I would say, because first, I don't imagine the traffic on such application will be that big, because it's a demo application after all. But if at some point the traffic on the application is becoming very big and we need to start caching, then I guess the endpoints that needs caching would be the one for listing offices, where people go and search for offices so they can rent. And I think caching this endpoint what I would do is to cache the JSON response, the response that's going to be output to the user, to the end user, and I'm gonna use the filters that are provided to the request as inside the cache key. So whenever a user makes a request using the same filters, we will read the response from the cache. The only problem we will have is if the user needs to paginate, and for that case, or in this case, we are going to include the page number in the cache as well. And when the cache should be busted, the simplest solution is to just let it expire on its own after maybe each 10 minutes, each 15 minutes, depending on the traffic. We will let the cache expire and then we can build it again. So it really depends. I cannot have an answer that covers all the cases, but that's how I would think about it if I want to cache the response. Yeah, it's a demo application after all, so I don't imagine there will be traffic. And even if it's a real application like Vapor or like Forge, usually at the start there is no much traffic, so you don't have to worry about all these stuff. Even if you are expecting the traffic to increase at certain point, I would just build the application without caching in mind until I start feeling that that caching is needed, that there is a bottleneck, that there is something slowing it down, there are many requests to the database and stuff like this. That's the point where I would consider caching. But for this application, for the kind of traffic that I would expect, caching is not really something that I would think about until it becomes a problem. That's the way I would think about it. Hi from Croatia. We need Arabic courses. Well, I hope I can have the time to make some. Are you going to deploy the demo app at the end? Yes, I'm gonna deploy it on Forge and on Vapor. That's the plan, at least. So let's continue. We want to email the user and the host when a reservation is made. That's very easy. So we will go to the user reservation controller. And after the reservation is made, here we need to create a notification to email the user and email the host about a new reservation. So we will use PHP artisan make notification, and we create a notification that says new reservation. Let's say new reservation or new user reservation. new user reservation, and we will use this to notify the user. So we will call in the office controller here, the way we send a notification is using notification send. So let's use the same just to keep it consistent. So we will use the notification facade and call the send method, and we will provide the user of the reservation, which is the request, the user making the request, the current logged in user. And then we will send this notification that we just created, new user reservation notification, and we will pass the reservation instance here. So here this should just receive an instance of reservation. Let's make it public, and this should be all we need. And we will need to create another notification, new host reservation, which indicates a new reservation was made on one of the offices that belong to a specific host. And we will again send this notification, but this time we are going to send it to the owner of the office. So let's go to the office model here, and yeah, it's the user that the office belongs to. So we are going to send these two notifications. This one as well should be a public property that has a type of reservation, and it's called reservation. I will not bother with the body of the notification in this demo app, but you can of course update the message here to say that a new reservation was made on one of your offices. Here are the details of the reservation, so on and so forth. So this is something I'm not gonna go through in this demo. So let's run the user reservation controller test again to make sure that sending the notification didn't break anything. So our test filter equals and we are good to go. Now let's go to the user reservation controller test, and it cannot make a reservation. It makes a reservation for 2 days. So I would say let's create another test case here. It sends notifications on new reservations. So now this is a reservation that's made, so we are going to call the notification facade fake, and then at the end here we will call the notification facade again and assert sent to. We expect that a notification will be sent to the user who is making the request, and the notification will be of type new user reservation class. Let's run the tests again, and they are all passing. And there will be another notification sent to the owner of the office, so office user, but this one will be new host reservation. Let's run the tests, and we are good to go. Now that two notifications will be sent, one to the user and one to the office owner or the host. So let's go to the todo, mark this as done, and then we take a quick look at the chat. Although it's a demo app, I think it's good to have the mindset of creating the application where it scales. You don't need 500 errors, I think, to your visitors. Well, thinking about scalability in mind while you're building application depends on the type of traffic that you're expecting for the application. If you are building an application for like high concurrency, a lot of people are going to use this application right away to make thousands of requests, then yes, you would need to think about solving issues like that. But sometimes, or for most cases, it's hard to really identify where the bottlenecks are before pushing the application to production. And I think since it's a demo app, we don't have a solid use case for this application. We don't have a real use for this application with real business requirements. We don't have to really think about caching different stuff. We just write the most performant code that we can write, make sure the queries are okay, make sure the indices are okay, and that's it. But of course, yeah, in a real application that's expecting a lot of traffic, we can make a few performance tweaks to make sure that we are not exhausting our database. Or another solution is to just use a different database for reading than the main database that's used for writing, or the main database of the application. So we can just have database replication and convert the office controller, the filter or the index method of the office controller, to use the replica database instead of the main database. And that way all the traffic, all the search traffic will be hitting a specific database, and it will not affect our main databases. So there are several ways to tackle scalability or tackle performance issues. So it depends really on the budget, it depends on the time, it depends on so many things. It's a whole big discussion for another day. But for the sake of this demo, I will not go to it. Can you send notification based on reservation create event? Yes, of course. You can listen to the reservation create event and send a notification, but I personally don't prefer using events. I would rather have everything in front of me to just, when I take a look here, I see what's going on, we validate, we create, and then we send notifications. So I like to make the code act as documentation. So for myself in the future, when I forget what's going on, or for any other one joining the team and starts working on this project, by reading the controller method or by reading the code flow, they can easily identify what is happening. But if we move this to a separate listener, and the user will read through this, and they might not know that there is a notification that's being sent. So I prefer to have everything laid out for me. That's why I don't prefer using listeners, except of course if I'm using a listener to extend the functionality of the framework itself, or the functionality of one of the packages that I'm using. In that case, yeah, I use listeners and listen to certain events and then act upon it. But in business logic, in the application logic, I don't prefer using events and listeners. All right, let's move to the next item in our to-do list. So we need to email the user and the host on reservation start day. And to do that, it's actually like there are several ways we can do that. So let's go to the user reservation controller. Some may think that we can dispatch a queue drop that sends the notifications, and we schedule this queue drop to be triggered on the start date. But that means between now and the time that the reservation is due, we will have our job like consuming or taking part of the storage that we use for the queue. Imagine that a user is making a reservation for 3 months in advance, and we push the job now to be executed after 3 months. During the 3 months, the queue store will be filled with jobs that will be executed in the future. So this is not something that I prefer. I prefer like delaying a job execution for a couple of hours, for a few hours is acceptable, but for more than that, it's better to just use the scheduling mechanism of Laravel to run the or to dispatch the jobs when the time comes. So we will go to the console kernel here. And under schedule here, we can write a schedule that runs, let's say, daily. Or yeah, there are several ways we can write a schedule. We can call an artisan command. We can dispatch a job, and we can provide a closure. So call here and we provide a closure. So what we are going to do here is, let's make an artisan command just to make things a little bit clear and isolate this code for finding reservations that are due to a different class. So we will run a command, or we will have a command that's called, let's say, do notifications, or do reservations notifications, maybe. Let's have it use this syntax. All right, and let's create the artisan command, art make command do reservations, or send do reservations notifications. Syntax error here will prevent us from creating the command. And I think there is also a way we can just reference send do reservation notification, the class name of the command, and Laravel will extract the command signature automatically, so we don't have to worry about it. And we are going to run this this command daily. All right, I didn't even ask for enabling dictation, so yeah, let's run it daily at the beginning of the day. So daily we will provide at the first hour of the day, or the first minute of the day. Let me know if this is not correct. I think it's correct. And this command here will have, let's call it Ergodnc send reservations notifications, and let's forget about the description for now. And then inside the handle method, we will want to query all the reservations where status is active, so reservation status active, and where start date is today, right? So reservations, let's write it in a more clear way. So query, so reservations that are active and that are due to start today. The first day of the reservation is today. Let's check the todo to see what it is saying. Email the user and host on reservation start day. So yes, we are making to all reservations that are going to start today and have a status active. They aren't cancelled. And for each of these reservations, so reservation, for each of these reservations, we are going to send two notifications, one for the host and another for the user. So let's create the notification. So art make notification, and we will say user reservation starting, and create another one that says host reservation starting. And we will basically do the same here. So in notification, send to the reservation, the user ID or the user who made the reservation. We will send them the new user reservation starting, and we will pass the reservation instance, and we will also send a notification to the office owner, so office reservation office user. And to ped the n+1 problem, we are going to call with office.user That way we will eager load the office user relationship, so when we use it here, we will not cause the n+1 problem. And here we will say host reservation starting and pass an instance of the reservation. Here again, it will be a public property of type reservation and reservation. And same here, it's going to be a public property of type reservation and it's called reservation. All right. So now when this command runs every day, it's going to filter through reservations that are due today and are still not cancelled, ones that are active, and it will send a notification for the user that made the reservation and a notification for the office owner. Of course, these reservations or these notifications should queue. So they are pushed to the queue, they are not executed in sync, and that also goes for the host reservation controller. It should implement should queue. Same for this one, implement should queue, and this one as well, implements should queue. Let's run the test to make sure that we haven't broke anything. And we're good. All right, so we can go to the kernel again, console kernel, and this command will run daily. Right, this command will run daily. And the way the scheduling works, the schedule run command is that you will, when we deploy this application to Laravel 4, we will schedule the PHP Artisan schedule run command to run every minute, and it's going to check if there are any scheduled commands that are or should be executed. So when we call PHP Artisan schedule run, right now it's saying that there are no scheduled commands ready to run, but if we run this at the beginning of the day at 0000, the first minute of the day, or we can just call it daily if we want, but if we run it at the first minute of the day, it's going to execute this command, send reservation notifications, and it will cause the notifications to be sent. Let's try to every minute. Let's use every minute. If we call the command, because we have it every minute, it picked that there is a command that should be run, and it called the PHP Artisan Ergodnc send reservations notification command, which will execute this code here and go through the reservations and send the notifications that are needed. So if we are going to send it every minute, call it every minute, we will get this command to run every time schedule runs each minute. But that's not what we need. We need to call it daily at the beginning of the day. And I think if we just call daily here, it's going to call it daily at the beginning of the day. But let's be explicit and make sure that it runs at the beginning of the day. I'm gonna need to verify that daily here is the same as daily at the first minute of the day. I'll have to verify that, but yeah, I think it's the same. Let's go to the to-do and mark this as done here, and you would probably want to ask how we can test this command, and we will just need to create reservations that are due today and then call this command from the test and make sure that the notifications are sent. I think we have the time to do that, but it should be pretty straightforward. So let's move it to the end of the stream. If we have time to do it, we will do it. If not, you can just do it in the repo. You can send the PR to the repo to do it. So test this command. Test the send due reservations notifications command. So now we want to generate a Wi-Fi password for each new reservation and store it encrypted. And to do that, we will go to the reservations table and we will have a string column for the Wi-Fi password. And this one, and yeah, we can make it nullable in case we won't need it. And inside the user reservation controller here, while creating the reservation, while creating the reservation, we will use a Wi-Fi password. So let's use just a random string. So we will create a Wi-Fi password and store it inside the database. Let's run the tests. Our test. Nothing is broken, but if we actually go to a test that creates user reservation controller test, so this one creates a reservation. Let's see here in the response, dd response JSON. Let's check this response. So art test filter equals, and let's take a look at the Wi-Fi password. Where is it? Yeah, Wi-Fi password here. We can see that it's stored in plain text, the one that's coming from the Sutter random, but we want to store it as encrypted. So we are going to use the encrypted task cast. I think it's called encrypted. We will verify that. So encrypted, I think. Let's run the test. So let's check the Ergodnc casting. Let's go to the documentation and take a look. So Laravel.com, and we will check for Ergodnc casting, encrypted casting, and then yeah, it's actually stored encrypted, but when it's returned back from the request or from the database, it's decrypted. So to verify that, let's go to call db table reservations. So we're not using Ergodnc here, and let's get all the reservations inside dd. So let's go to the terminal and run this test again, and we can see in the results that the Wi-Fi password is now stored encrypted because we are using the encrypted cast. If we stop using it, we can see that it's now stored in plain string. So using the encrypted task will ensure that the Wi-Fi password is stored in the database as encrypted, but when it's returned to the when it's returned by Ergodnc, it will be decrypted after being presented to the user, and that way we are storing, or we are protecting the Wi-Fi password. When it's stored in the database, if anyone for any reason got access to the database, they will not be able to extract the Wi-Fi password of a reservation. Of course, that's just an example. We don't really need to encrypt the Wi-Fi password. We don't have to. It's not something sensitive, but just thought that I would show you the new encrypted cast that if you haven't heard of it before. So let me take a quick look at the chat. I think I forgot to take a look at it for quite some time, so let me take a look. This is exactly what I do. It makes things feel seamless. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Steve. If you can let me know. Change the migration to text instead of string so that it's long enough to store the full encrypted value with no risk of truncation. Yeah, that makes sense actually. So let's go to the reservation migration here, and instead of using string we'll use the longer form, which is text. I'm not sure about the question about custom MySQL functions. Can you share more details? Greetings from Italy. Hello there. Hello, Nicola. Yeah. All right, Steve. That makes sense. Yeah. Glad you are using the same way, or you're doing it in the same way. So let's go to the todo here, and we have generated the Wi-Fi password and we are storing it in the database as encrypted. Now this is done. Now let's move to the cancel reservation endpoint. So we'll go to the routes api.php file, and here we will use a delete HTTP verb to delete a specific reservation, or not delete it actually, we are going to cancel it. So reservation, and we will call the cancel method inside the user reservation controller. So let's go and create this cancel method, and this cancel method should accept, I'm the king of typos, so it should have a reservation that will be populated for us by route model binding. So when the user provides reservation / the reservation ID, we will get the reservation object here, and we should protect this route. So let's go to the toto. It must be authenticated. We have applied the middleware token. If exists, must follow the reservations cancel, or must have the reservation cancel permission. So here we took care of that. Can only cancel their own reservation, and to do that we will just, if the reservation user ID doesn't match the current user ID, we will throw an exception, or we can actually return 404 response, so we don't expose that we have a reservation with the ID that's provided if you don't have access to it. So I think it's just a matter of what you expect from your application. If you're okay with exposing, or we're letting users try to cancel a reservation with a random ID, and if the ID exists they will get a reservation error, if the ID doesn't exist they will get 404. But if you want to prevent users from doing that, you would just return a 404 if the user is trying to cancel a reservation that doesn't belong to them. So in my case here, I will just go ahead and throw a validation error. So throw validation exception with messages, and this message will reference the reservation, and it would say that you cannot cancel this reservation. So this covers that, and can only cancel an active reservation that has start date in the future. So if the reservation status is not active, reservation status active, you cannot cancel this reservation, just the same. So we'll just use the same here. So if you try to cancel a reservation that doesn't belong to you, or a reservation that was already cancelled, we will tell you that you cannot cancel this reservation. And to be more explicit, if the reservation has status cancelled, if it's cancelled already, we will tell you that you cannot cancel this reservation. And here we want to also make sure that they cannot cancel a reservation that's in the past. So we will just use the same here, and we'll add another condition. If the reservation start date is less than now to date string, if the reservation in the past, you cannot cancel it. If all went fine, if everything is great, we will just, or if you are allowed to cancel this reservation, we will just update the record and change the status to reservation status cancelled, which will cancel this reservation. And we will return the reservation object with the office loaded again here. So this should cover that, and the cancellation endpoint should be good to go. Quick look at the chat. What about creating a policy for reservation cancelling? Again, it's a personal preference. I only use policies when the action that I'm trying to prevent is something related to what the current logged in user can or can't do. In this case, I think this is more of a business logic than authorization logic. So yes, we can use a policy to prevent a user from trying to cancel a reservation that doesn't belong to them. That totally makes sense. But if I'm already having other cases that tells me what the user can or can't do here, or what if this action can be done, I would rather just use it here so I can take one look at the controller and see all the validation cases under each other. That's something I prefer. Of course, if you decide to do or if you decide to create a policy to make sure that a user can interact with a certain reservation, that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. So it's just a personal preference. So for me, I just prefer to have everything laid down like this. So with one look, I can find what are the restrictions on this endpoint, or what can or how a user can be able to cancel a certain reservation. So that's just a personal preference. All right, so we have this in the to-do as done, and we can, of course, we can write some validation, or we need to write some tests to cover these, but it's pretty straightforward. Just like all the other examples, we're going to have a reservation and make sure that the user cannot cancel a reservation that doesn't belong to them, or a reservation that's already canceled, or a reservation that is in the past. So it's pretty straightforward. I don't think that I need to do it, and we are about to run out of time, so I will just move to the next part, which is the filtering offices by tag. This one we missed from the office controller here. We allowed the user to filter by user ID, by the visitor, and by a certain location. What's missing is allowing the user to filter by specific tags. Otherwise, the tags functionality would be useless. But before we go, I would like to ask your permission for a 1 minute break or 30 seconds break. I just need to adjust the temperature of the room because it's getting really hot. So just all right, I'm back. Thank you for your patience. So here we need to allow the user to filter by a specific tag, and to do that we will also call the when method. We will call the when method when the user provides a tag's input to the request. We are going to execute this closure. The closure accepts an instance of the Eloquent builder, and it should filter the reservations by the ones that are attached to specific tags. And to do that, we will use the where-has method and provide the tag's relationship name. And the where-has method accepts a closure also at the second argument. And this time we are filtering tags now. So we are saying that if you are filtering by tags, we are going to filter the offices that has tags, and those tags follow this condition, and the condition will be where the ID in the ID is provided from the request. So here we are saying that we want offices that has tags, and those tags exist in the array of tag IDs that are passed to the request, and that way we are filtering requests by specific tags. If we leave this query as it is, it's going to return all the records that have or are attached to tags that are provided with the request. And this makes sense, this might make sense, but I think for this endpoint, if the user is providing two tags, they are looking for offices that have those two tags, not either one of them. So if you, for example, you are trying to find an office that is attached or is attached to a tag has air conditioning, and is also attached to a tag has private bathroom, you are trying to find offices that has an air conditioning and a private bathroom. You're not trying to find reservations that has air conditioning but not a private bathroom, or a private bathroom but not air conditioning. So I think in this case we want to make sure that the records returned have both tags. And to do that, we are going to call this or use the third argument on where has. So first it accepts the name of the relationship and the closure of the condition, and then it's using an operator. The third argument is an operator, and the fourth argument is the value. So what we're saying here, we want to try to find offices that are attached to tags where the result of the query that's filtering the tags returns two results. So that's what we are trying to say. And this query will ensure that the offices returned are ones, or not two, count request tags. So if the user is trying to find offices that are attached to three tags, we'll try to find offices that are attached to any of these tags where the total number of tags that it could find or returned from the where in condition equals to the same number of tags that are provided to the request. I hope this is clear. I'm not sure if I am explaining it well, so let me know if it's a little bit confusing, so I can explain it more, and maybe the test. Maybe writing a test to cover this condition will explain it more. So let's go to the office controller test, and it filters by visitor ID. Let's have another filter here. So what we want to do now, it filters by tags, so it filters by tags. So first we want to create a few tags, so let's do that. So let's create a tag factory, let's create two tags, and then we don't need a user. We will create an office, and this office will be attached to the tag, so has attached to these two tags. And we will create another office that is attached to only the first tag. Yes, so this office is attached to the two tags, and this office is attached to only the first tag, and this office, the third office that we create, is not attached to any tag. And we are going to filter by tags. Let's use the HTTP build query helper here. We will provide tags, and inside the tags we will filter by pose tag IDs, so pluck ID and to array, call to array. So now the response here should contain only this single office. Let's test that. JSON, it filters by tags, so let's go to the terminal and run this test. Our test filter equals, it filters by tags. And we can see that it's returning only a single result. But if we go to the office controller test and we remove this condition here and we run the tests again, we can see that it's now returning 2 records, not 1, 0 and 1, because this one will be included. It's attached to one of the tags that we are filtering from. So having this condition here ensures that all the offices that are returned are actually attached to all the tags that are provided to the filtering. So assert JSON count, we need to make sure that only 1 is returned, and that one is the one that we are expecting. If we run this test now, it's now passing. Let's run all the tests. And we are green, so this one is done. Let me take a quick look at the chat. You can also add a where doesn't have query for an inverted tags filtering. Yes, but I don't think we need this in the scope of this application. We can also do housekeeping with the new merge in validation, reservation, create, validator, safe, merge, all. I'm not sure what you mean, Price, by this. If you open a pull request or an issue on the repo with what you mean, I would really appreciate it. All right, so let's move to the next item in our to-do list here, which is making sure that the API is returning the full URI of the image so that the consumer can load it easily. So if we go to the Office controller here and we find any of the tests that, Office controller test, we find any of the tests that load images, it includes images. Let's take a look at the response. So DD response JSON, or there was a response DD method. Oh, it's just dump, right? Let's do dump and see what it looks like. So art test filter, equals, yeah, so here the images, the image path here, yeah, it's returning just the name of the image. What we want to do here is to return the full URL of the image so any front end can just load it right away. And to do that, we will go to the image resource and we are going to copy this here, and instead of returning the array or we're returning all the attributes of the image method, we are going to return an array and call this merge, and inside the merge method we will provide the arrays, or we will merge whatever we will add here, we will merge it to the original attributes, and that allows us to override the path and call storage URL this path here. And now if we run the test again, we can see that instead of just returning the name of the image, it's returning a fully or a full URL that people can use right away to display the image in any front end. And we were able to do that by overwriting the path of the image inside the image resource that is returned when the image is attached to the office. And the image resource is returned because inside the office resource when the user or when we are displaying images, we are not displaying images from the Eloquent model, we are wrapping them inside the image resource collection, and that allows us to use the JSON resources feature of Laravel to do a lot of things. One of these things is the ability to override any of the attributes, provided only when this attribute is returned as a JSON response. If we try to load the path attribute on an Eloquent model regularly inside our application, it will just return the image, not the URL. But if we return the image inside a JSON response, it's going to give us the URL, and that's one of the benefits of the JSON response. You can think about it as a view for your API responses. So you can customize the view however you want, and it will reflect on the responses. So let's go to the to-do and mark this as done, and I think that covers it all. Of course, we can test this. We need to cover this with testing, and we need to cover the cancellation endpoint with testing as well. But I really think that these tests are pretty straightforward. They are like tests that we already wrote, or we have already written for this application. So I don't think we need to go through this during the stream. Let me take a quick look at the chat. We should think about conflicting image names. Image controller, Office image controller here. And I think Laravel, when we use the store here publicly, store as, it's going to generate a hash name, and the hash name of the image will be a random string. So there is a very low chance that there will be a conflict between the images that are uploaded. But if we really need to make sure that they don't conflict, we can simply use a UUID, or a universal unique ID, for the image name instead of using the setter random. So yeah, I think it's okay to just use setter random here. All right. All right. So I think we are good to go with this application, and I think we are done with the stream for today. If you guys don't have any more questions, I think we are good to go. So that was it. That was building Ergodnc. We have been building this for the past month, I think. We started the application from scratch, and we hit some bumpy roads while building it. I had to do some research, and I had to debug during the stream and off screen after the stream and research some stuff. So it was really a good practice building this application. I hope you learned something while we were working on this. I really enjoyed streaming this kind of streams. Actually beneficial for me as well, because working at Laravel, we are building, or our day job involves handling customer support, covering or maintaining the different Laravel open source packages and the different projects like Forge and Envoyer and Spark and Vapor. But these projects are very special in that they interact with cloud providers, they interact with SSH and servers, and really complicated stuff. But there are a lot, or this is like a specific kind of applications, like working on Vapor, Envoyer and Forge. These are specific kinds of applications. But building applications like Ergodnc, e-commerce applications, other types of applications, or the applications that you would do in a regular day job working in a software company, building this kind of applications is the most common. So being able to build this kind of applications live is actually beneficial to me because I haven't been doing this for some time, and it's really nice, or it's really good to eliminate any rusty skills that I have, because I don't use these parts of the framework, because I don't have to use them in the types of applications that we built in Laravel. So I hope this was as beneficial to you as it is for me. I hope there will be future streams building applications like this, but for now, the next 1 or 2 streams, we will look into deploying this application to Laravel Forge, a Forge provisioned server, and we will also look into deploying this application to Laravel Faber to run in the serverless environment. So again, I hope you enjoyed this stream, and I hope you learned something, and I am glad that you are here. Hope to have you in the next streams. Have a good day and goodbye.